The moment that I first truly got invested into the Zelda series was during the end credits to Ocarina of Time. Zelda's blissful lullaby, along with visuals that echo back to the regions of Hyrule we saved, made me reflect on the journey in its entirety. Ocarina was one of the only Zeldas I played as a child, but I didn't beat it until I was much older. That feeling of finally fulfilling something I always wanted to as a kid really encouraged me to venture through the rest of the 3D Zeldas. The series sometimes gets a bad rap for seemingly always striving for the quote-unquote cliche ending, but you can't deny how heartwarming and emotional most of them prove to be. What's up, my homies? It's Edible Incredible, and today I'll be ranking my 5 favorite Zelda endings. I'll be comparing these finales based on the final dungeon, final boss, and simply how satisfactory it feels to trigger the end credits. Coming in at number 5 is the longest ending sequence we've seen in a Zelda, which takes place in Twilight Princess. It's up to you whether or not the Twilight Realm is included in this ending, or if you believe the final dungeon to be Hyrule Castle. Either way, in the finale alone, we get 4 forms of Ganon thrown at us, a record-setting number for the series, with by far my favorite being the horseback fight. Following his assumed victory over Midna, we're treated to this occasionally frustrating yet unique clash in Hyrule Field, which is something I'd love to see return in the future, especially now that horseback riding has improved leaps and bounds since then. And of course, the anticipated 1v1 duel fans were craving at the time, lived up to the hype by the atmosphere it created, the surrounding thunderstorm, the barrier Ganon casts, and especially the music. Unfortunately, the fight itself is super easy. Luckily, the sequence of cutscenes that follow are the peak of visual storytelling in a Zelda. From Xant's neckcrack, to the illustrious credits theme, to the bittersweet farewell of the most developed sidekick in this series. Through my eyes, the Twilight Princess ending isn't balanced enough to hold up as my favorite, but what it does well, it does exceptionally well, with the atmosphere and visuals being what drives it. And now, onto the other dark-themed 3D Zelda, the one that deals with death more than any other. The tragic tale of an imp that gets taken advantage of by an ancient demonic mask, snowballing down to the citizens of Clocktown and the surrounding areas. It's one of the more interesting worlds in Zelda because of how it affects each soul with its impending doom. This lingering feeling of death throughout Link's journey across Termina just builds until we finally get to the head of it all. This crazed being makes for the most off-putting and theorized finale in the series. Link follows the mask into the moon to find a seemingly peaceful landscape. Kids playing around a tree, but one sitting by himself. Once Link caters to the 4 children's desires of collecting all the masks, he makes his way to the final child. Everyone has gone away, haven't they? Let's play good guys against bad guys. Yes, let's play that. I absolutely love how carefree this kid appears to be on the surface, a direct contrast of Majora's true intent of obliterating the world. The fight itself is dictated by whether or not you decided to gather all the masks. If so, you're granted one of the most iconic versions of our hero, the Fierce Deity. As great as it feels to destroy Majora with these, I always found the opposite to be much more gratifying in terms of the fight alone. Without the Fierce Deity mask, it truly feels like a final battle. Sure, you can feel more satisfied in the sense of completion, but switching between a Zora to stun Majora and a Goron to punch his brains out is the way to go, at least in my opinion. And this game's credit scene is another super heartwarming moment. Seeing dawn of a new day after reliving the same 3 days over and over throughout your playthrough is just super sweet, especially as they hint at Anju and Cafe finally being able to marry each other. After the heartbreak and despair these citizens had to suffer through, an ending that reeks with happiness just felt right. So as much as this game built up the moon and Majora as giving off this ominous and straight up terrifying vibe, it then flipped those themes on its head once we entered this peaceful environment, and then concluding with everything falling into place, making for one damn good but eerie ending. Okay, so this next one is most definitely gonna come as a surprise. My number 3 stems from Vaati's origin story, the Minish Cap. I feel this is a Zelda that quietly chills under everyone's radar, holding one of the best musical scores in the series. Sure, it's overall a fairly easy game, but to me, the part that stuck out the most by far was the finale. The final dungeon makes use of the newly acquired Force Sword rather nicely, leading up to the showdown with my second favorite Zelda villain. The first form you fight him in is definitely my favorite aesthetically. Just look at that badassery. I've realized that everything about Vaati's battle involves an eye. From the eyes circling around him, to the stained glass windows, to the carpet, to even Vaati himself. In this first phase, the eye on his chest is his weak point. I really like how when it closes, you hear a metallic click from Link's sword colliding with the eyelid. The same sound you get when slapping any other metal surface in the game. It's such a small touch by the developers, but it makes Vaati feel much more than simply just an eyeball. He has freaking metal for an eyelid. Damn, he good. Then of course, this clash is followed by his true form, the pure demonic eye, known as Vaati Transfigured. In the middle of this transformation, he almost looks like a bat, as if he's Dracula. And I just now realized as I wrote this script that he has the same laugh as the Happy Mask salesman. What? And the music here is pretty damn epic. Probably my favorite track out of his 3 boss phases. So once you defeat his second phase, it seems as if all's good. We even escort Zelda through a debris-filled Hyrule castle, which harps back to how Ocarina handled its ending. But of course, Vaati isn't finished just yet. You will not escape, boy. Now, you will see the true power of the Light Force, for I've become Vaati, the master of this world. I like how in this dimension, he has symbols representing all 4 elements on the floor. Possibly his way of toying with Link, since he let Link gather these 4 elements so he could locate the Light Force. Anyway, this clash requires Link to shrink back down to the size of a Minish. Fitting, of course. Then the good old tennis match, but this time with the power of 4 links. Absolutely wailing on Vaati couldn't be more satisfying. So as you can see, my favorite part about this ending is the forms of Vaati Link has to trek through, showcasing the first game in the timeline to introduce Vaati and the Force Sword. Maybe one day we'll get Vaati in a 3D Zelda. Please, Nintendo. Now onto the ending that sketched its everlasting impact on the chronology. I just can't talk about Zelda finales without Ocarina, the one and only Zelda where the game over screen is canon, establishing the downfall timeline with Ganon's triumph, as well as the adult and child eras with Link's victory. It's this branching of history that got me hooked into Zelda lore. Puzzle-wise, it's my favorite final dungeon, with rooms themed after each of the game's temples, even including a light room theme hinting at the Temple of Time or a dungeon that may have been scrapped. Ganon's organ is without a doubt my favorite theme for a final descent into a finale. Smashing the ground with your fist to destroy the floor beneath you as you hover is the most ridiculously arrogant way to start a deathmatch, encompassing Ganon's cockiness to the max, and I love it. This particular voice actor is so good, from his laughs to his grunts to his gasp for air. If Breath of the Wild 2 doesn't include full-on voice acting for Ganondorf, they should just hire this actor again to at least capitalize on those timeless grunts, especially if it turns out to be the same Ganon story-wise from the Ocarina days. Oh, and another nice small touch I really appreciate is how they display his health meter via the amount of slashes in his cape. This was the first 3D Zelda I finished, so once the castle crumbled, I literally thought it was over. The first time fighting Pig Ganon was by far the best, since like most Zelda bosses, the fun comes from finding out the weak point. Now that I've beaten this game countless times, this boss is super easy. On the other hand, his tennis match is still pretty intense. That is, if you're playing with 3 hearts. So after avoiding the downfall timeline, Zelda sends Link back in time. to regain his lost childhood. Sounds fair in theory, but what Zelda didn't realize is that this decision created a third branch of history. Watching Navi mysteriously fly away, followed by young Link walking up to this reality's princess to warn the royal family, is always so bittersweet, reminding me of how this Link will never see Navi again, and have to bear the burden of not being remembered as a hero in a world that Ganon lived on. It's the overarching story surrounding Ocarina, having to grow prematurely into a life that isn't as fulfilling as it should be, compared to dreaming of being an adult as a boy. It's an ending that never fails to make me feel all warm and fuzzy due to its nostalgic value, yet it comes up just short of my all-time favorite. But before we get to that, I want to quickly cover just one honorable mention. Good old Skyward Sword. I know this is a top 5, but I think this ending is quality enough to at least be mentioned. Its final dungeon is one of the most unique dungeons to date. Sure, Skykeep can be a tad annoying, but shifting the rooms around to progress is such a groundbreaking mechanic that I'd welcome again in the future. The final Gear duel is super gratifying. I love jumping off his platforms to stab him in the heart for all the times he got in our way. And Demise's true form definitely lived up to the hype of fighting the friggin' imprisoned 1,000 times. Using lightning in a realm that Demise created himself against him makes for one of the more visually stunning and rewarding finishes in the series. And of course, to top it off with his cursed speech that forever placed a lock on the 3 destined to covet the respected pieces to the Triforce. Thanks for starting an endless war, Demise. Appreciate that. And now it's finally time for my number 1. None other than the Wind Waker. It has just about everything I'd want in a Zelda ending. Starting with the final dungeon, absolutely love how we're forced to do battle with the game's bosses yet again. It's something I craved in Ocarina's final dungeon. The puzzle design isn't as compelling as Ocarina's, but these rooms get the job done in that aspect. Phantom Ganon was my favorite boss from Ocarina, alongside Bongo, so I was thrilled to see his reappearance in the Wind Waker. So much so that I craved another fight with him after the short-lived one on Forsaken Fortress. Getting a prolonged clash right before Ganon more than satisfied that thirst. The Ganondorf in this tale is the most understanding iteration. The way he goes off about his childhood land of the Gerudo Desert humanizes him for the first time in the series. You almost feel bad for this ancient dude, who wanted nothing more but to bring back these lands. I feel Demise's curse is easily seen the most here. Ganondorf is plagued by his desires to obtain the Triforce. He didn't seem like he wanted to rule the world like his younger self did, but he was just blinded by his nostalgia. Something a lot of us have for Ocarina, or at least whatever your first Zelda experience stemmed from. I love how he realizes Toon Link is in fact the hero reborn after he fends off his puppet, the only Ganon to know of the threat that the spirit of the hero brings. The toughest part of this entire end sequence is definitely the final form of Puppet Ganon. This snake-like puppet isn't easy to slap with your light arrows, but when you finally do, Ganon encourages you to meet him atop his tower. Link, still exhausted from those ridiculous puppets, listens as Ganon spouts depressingly about his lost childhood. He then reassures Link that he doesn't want to kill him, he just merely needs the power that dwells within him. Every hope and dream Ganon has built up for himself over the past hundreds of years comes to a crushing end as the prior King of Hyrule rips away his wish for his own, driving Ganon to seek his inner demise as he throws away everything he just previously stated about not wanting to kill these children, setting up the clash that the adult timeline was always fated to hold, ever since his imprisonment a century or so ago. Cue the greatest Ganon boss theme ever. This battle isn't just gorgeous visually, but I love how aggressive Ganon is. Nothing like the slow, lumbering duel in Twilight Princess. Sure, it's still stupidly easy, but at least Ganon actually feels like an exceptional swordsman. He doesn't look athletic at all in this game, but man, does he have ups. Fitting for the Devil's Reincarnate to jump with pure grace. Zelda games always have that super satisfactory final blow, and the Wind Waker takes that to a whole nother level. Following Ganon's most horrific ceiling yet, we witness the king's tragic farewell, deciding to stay in the land he felt he once tainted. We then get the glorious title/credits theme to send our heroes off. Since this is one of the more shorter Zeldas, I always find myself wanting a tad more during these credits. But that's basically my only complaint. It gives off more of a simple feel-good compared to Ocarina's bittersweet finale. And well, I hope you enjoyed this project. I appreciate you listening to my crazy self for 14 some odd minutes. Let me know your favorite Zelda ending. And as always, don't forget to stay hyped. Peace! He has friggin' metal for an eyelid. Damn, he good. Damn he good. Damn, he good. Damn, he good. Damn, he hot. Damn, he good. He has metal for an eyelid. I'm crazy.